1,
2,
3,
4.
Monster movie.
Fun time, go! Monster movie.
Fun time, go. Monster.
Movie.
Fun time.
Go!
Monster movie. Fun time, go.
With Precious D and Honeybee.
Fun time, go!
Pausa rapidinho agora para falar de dica de ouro para os papais e mamães. Depois de experimentar a nova Hug Supreme Care Fralda Roupinha, tudo ficou ainda melhor para o meu filho. É a única com canais em X que se adaptam aos movimentos, com 2 vezes proteção noturna e cintura elástica que se adapta ao corpinho do bebê, além de ser super fácil de colocar e tirar. Praticidade pura. Então guarda essa dica. Nova Hug Supreme Care Fralda Roupinha. Bebê, estamos juntos nessa, mais do que nunca. Agora curta seu podcast.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, friends and neighbors, welcome to another one of our RPG specials here on Monster Movie Fun Time Go. Today we are talking with Chris Goober Ramsley and Siegfried Trent, who are the game designers of Everyday Heroes. Welcome to the show, gentlemen.
Thanks for having us.
I've been trying to get you guys on here for a while, and then I finally found the right address to contact you through, and your PR guy kindly set this up, so thanks for being here. Everyday Heroes is a 5th edition modern variant in the tradition of modern D20. You want to talk to us a little bit about that?
Sure. So, yeah, Everyday Heroes was inspired by D20 Modern. It's a similar spiritual game in that the idea is modern action role-playing, so bank robbers, cops and robbers type things, or terrorists or spies, or even just adventures at the mini-mart. Whatever might happen in the real world that you might see in an action movie, that's Everyday Heroes. We also have sort of these things called cinematic adventures, which are licensed movie properties, and each of those covers a different movie or a movie universe and provides additional details to our main game that help you create that world and play in that world. And then they also include an adventure for that setting so that you can kind of get started with it. And
yes,
got lots of other things coming down the pipeline, but yeah.
That was more even. That was Siegfried talking, ladies and gentlemen. I wanted to ask about that. You guys, I backed this thing on Kickstarter, and I could not, because I have a problem, and I could not believe the number of licenses that you had with this game. They include...
Yeah, it's crazy.
They include Escape from New York, The Crow, Rambo, Highlander, Total Recall, Universal Soldier, and the reason we asked you to come on this show, the 2 licenses that are relevant to our usual topic, Kong Skull Island and Pacific Rim. How on earth did you get so many licenses? Was it a bundle, or what? Did they each have to be negotiated separately? What happened there?
So our glorious leader, the evil genius himself, Dave, I guess just knows people who do movie licenses. I don't know how that process works. He comes to us and says, hey, here's some movie licenses I'm thinking about getting, or, that are on the table. Which ones do you think, would make a good game? And which ones, do we think would be popular? What would people want? Yep. I think we've asked the fans a couple of times about, which of these things would you be excited for? And then he makes it happen.
Sometimes we get to write pitches for them to try and entice the studios. Hey, what would this game be like? And we've written pitches for far more things than we're doing. So, not every swing is a hit. But some of them are bundled up. So the 2 Legendary properties, is a kind of a joint deal with Legendary. And then we have a deal with Studio Canal for about 5 of the others. And then there's one... I forget which one. It might be The Crow. I'm not sure. That's with another studio. So sometimes it's a group arrangement. That's certainly easier, right? If we can go to somebody who has a bunch of movies, and we can say which ones of these can we do. But we'll make a one-spot deal if we can find somebody to talk to too.
So I did a presentation at G-Fest recently of kaiju in role-playing games. And of course, I covered this game. And you've also recently had a Kickstarter for a Legendary Bundle. So you're already expanding the Kong Skull Island and the Pacific Rim with 2 new expansions for those. But the thing that people asked me afterwards was, why no Godzilla?
The answer to that is basically getting a license from Toho is a lot harder than getting a license from Legendary.
Yes, I assumed
and-
that
Yeah.
Legendary was not free to sub-license Godzilla out on their own.
That's correct. Yeah, we would have to deal with Toho, and the deal with I spent a couple years in Japan, which doesn't make me an expert, but Japanese business is very hands-on and very kind of like get to know people, and that's a little hard for us to do. The scale of our company is to send people over to Japan and try to build these relationships and everything. So hopefully, we're hoping maybe that they'll see the great job that we did and enjoy the products and have enough trust to share that license. But we can't guarantee it. It's really in their court as to whether they want to do that or when they would want to do that. So we have to be very careful when we're doing Legendary work to not venture into anything that is Toho owned.
Right.
We try to do that, and we try to do it naturally so that just the scope, doing stuff on Skull Island, everything that happens there is all Legendary all the time. And so that's one of the reasons we focused on that. And of course, Toho doesn't have anything to do with Pacific Rim, so that was no problem.
Right, yeah. That's
But we'd
its
love
own
to do
whole thing.
Godzilla. I mean, that would, not only would it be a more popular title that would really, get those extra sales, but my dad was a big Godzilla fan when I was a little kid, and so, I've got kind of a personal connection with Big G, as it were. I mentioned that a little in the opening of Kong Skull Island, because in a foreword you can say things a little different than you do in the product.
Yeah.
So I talk about that a little bit. So he would be really tickled to see a Godzilla treatment, but there's boundaries, and we try to do our best to respect them because we want to be good partners.
Yeah. But it really is a crime that there is no official Godzilla role-playing game.
It
There's
is
just
kind of
so
sad, yeah.
much, so much material and so many different eras and things that you could cover.
Yeah, you'd think there would be one.
There's a
Yeah,
Jenga
it's
game.
incredibly rich. Yeah, there's
and
some
I've
board
got another
games and
board
things
game.
like that. Yeah. RPGs are not quite as big in Japan still as they are in the U.S. Call of Cthulhu is the
Right.
most popular game there.
I
So it's a little harder to get across. And we have that issue with studios. Sometimes they're like, we don't know what a role-playing game is. And
Right.
so Goober actually recently ran a role-playing game for some folks. These were actually software developers, right? Just so they had some concept of what it is we're talking about.
Yeah, so like, when they're looking at this stuff, like, we need to list what the attack bonus and damage is and what your proficiency bonus is. They didn't know what that meant really. Right. So it's just like, here is basically what that means, and also like what a role-playing game is. You're kind of telling a story together.
Well, it's a little easier, I would think, these days because they've been showing up in other forms of popular culture, TV shows and movies and stuff. So you've got,
and we run into we run into people at the studios who are role-playing fans and are really excited about it. So that does happen too. Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, and some who like hadn't heard of it before but are like super into it. Like, I think all the people over at whoever was licensing The Crow were all like, this is so cool. I didn't know this was even a thing.
I was going to say the one Japanese role-playing game I have is a copy of GURPS from about 20 years ago that I won as a prize. I had submitted something to a little contest Steve Jackson Games was having, and he sent me a box of silliness, including a copy of GURPS in Japanese, and the format is completely different. It's a very small it's smaller than the manga we get here, but it looks to me
Yeah.
like that's what it's meant to be. It's like the size of a Little Big Book, if you remember those, if you're old enough to remember those.
Yeah, their formats are different, and I think if you're going to publish something in Japan, you do need to hire a Japanese layout artist who knows how to do it correctly.
Well, all the art is completely different. It's all very manga art for that,
Yeah.
and not nearly as much of it. So I guess it's
It's
very
interesting. The
dense on
Cthulhu books
information.
generally have a European style because that's kind of the mystique of the Cthulhu story is Victorian England and Eastern Coast America of that period. So they're done in a Western style intentionally because it's seen as a Western themed game.
Yeah, like if we were gonna pick up an anime themed role playing game in America, we would probably expect it to be formatted a little differently.
Yeah. And
So,
I will say that's an area working with Legendary. The artwork they're very particular about, right? So we did have a lot of back and forth and redoing images of creatures and things to make sure that we get a kind of legendary look and feel on things.
It's mostly original art, though, isn't it? You didn't just cut and paste images from the films.
That's right. Yeah, we generally don't use images from films, and often we're not allowed to use the character likenesses for people, for actors. Sometimes the license we get will include that. It's pretty rare, though. So, like for Rambo and The Crow, we did get permission to use the likeness of the main characters in our art, but we're still doing all original art for it.
Yeah, I got
Yeah,
few licensed games
in Pacific Rim, there were definitely a few like little like logos and stuff that came out of their plot Bible. So nothing that was like in the film. And it's all like, a wireframe of a Jaeger or the PPDC logo or something. Those were interspersed a little bit in there. But all the pictures that are like, here's a kaiju, here's a scene, a character, like all that's original.
I definitely have some licensed games that's all they've done is taken some production stills and spread them throughout the book. I'm looking at you, Hercules and Xena.
And I can't fault people for that. It's just sort of a stylistic choice. Some fans think that's really cool, and some don't. Yeah, but we were definitely interested in doing
it's also
original
a budget choice.
Yeah, well,
It's very if you're a super tiny, like one person making a game and you don't have funding and so art's expensive. So.
And we always try to expand on the world, right? So we don't want to just go, here's just the things you saw in the film. We're trying to make it so you can play in that world and go off in your own directions. And so we always want to include new Jaegers, new monsters, new cool stuff, new story elements that are not going to conflict at all with the canon, but are just going to help build on it and provide kind of a richness and detail in the world and encourage the players and the game masters to do the same thing and make that world their own world.
So what were some of the challenges you found in expanding those storylines and those worlds and, trying to stay true to the setting without just repeating what we've already seen in the movie?
Why don't you go first on that one, Goober?
Yeah, I'm not sure there were a whole ton of challenges with that specifically. I think a lot of the big challenges were just how do we make this a role-playing game? How can we make this function alongside this 5e system? Because there's all these giant monsters, giant robots. It's such like a different, weird sort of world from all the other ones we were doing. So the biggest thing for me, I sort of took the lead on the Pacific Rim side of things, was making sure that drifting and piloting Jaegers like felt good. It felt right. It felt like it does in the movie, but also, you get to be your own character. You get to, make your own robot. You get to use your own character skills and things in that. So that was something I had been chewing on for a real long time before actually delving into that one. I think what has come out of that is really cool, really good. People seem to like it a lot. In sort of simple terms, basically, you get to use your characters' like special abilities and stuff in the Jaeger, and the people who are drifting together act together. So like your Jaeger has its turn, and you just have to agree on what it's gonna do.
Okay.
Yeah, it's
that's
very
interesting
simple in a
situation.
way, but it's also just really fun to play. It feels like there are very few role-playing games where, I guess in all of them you are working together as a team, but in that one you have a partner and you guys really are this kind of gestalt entity when you're in the Jaeger, and I love it. I love playing with my wife, doing Pacific Rim, just because it's got that close partnership. It's really cool.
So you, as I mentioned, you already have expansions coming out for Pacific Rim and Kong Skull Island. Is there anything else that you can tell us about that you're adding on to, or anything new that we haven't seen yet?
Yeah, I don't think so. I mean, there's going to be a lot of new and interesting stuff in the cinematic adventure paths, they're called. Basically, those are a giant adventure that will take you from level 1 to level 10, maybe, or 7. I forget exactly where it goes.
Yeah,
And yeah,
10.
from 1 to 10. So it's a long series of adventures that will take quite a while to play through and is great for people who want to get down and really do a big epic story in these worlds, right? And that's the goal. And then they'll each come with a kind of a companion book that has a great deal of information about the more technical aspects. So Pacific Rim is going to have this sort of Jaeger building guide that really dives deep into all the mechanics and cool features, the things that Jaegers can do, and how they're put together and all that kind of great stuff. And then Kong will come with a big bestiary that has all kinds of crazy monsters that you can find on Skull Island, and I'm working on that currently. So yeah, they're just sort of a lot more stuff, like lots more new content that you've never seen before is what's in these, and just a really grand scope adventures, where the adventures in the cinematic adventure, because those books are like half setting, establishing the setting for those people who may not even be familiar with that world. The adventure is a little bit shorter. It's about 3 sessions or so, and it's more like one cohesive story rather than a long campaign with a series of stories in it. So a little bit different products, but yeah, both expanding lore in their own ways. And you'll see things from the cinematic adventure in each, and they're both standalone. You don't need to buy one to use the other necessarily. They're set up so if you buy one of these things, you get a complete product and you get to enjoy it. By the way, though, you could get them all, and they've all got cool stuff that works together, and so you can mix and match and do all that.
Well, I know there's
Combine them all. One cool thing that's going to be in the Pacific Rim one is so it's this whole campaign. Your Jaeger pilots, rangers. Obviously, you're going to be fighting kaiju, and all of those kaiju are going to be like new for that adventure. So a bunch of like cool art for these new kaiju, something you could use in your own games even if you're not doing the adventure. I'm really excited about all those.
And there's a book coming out that combines all the special rules, right?
Oh yeah, so for Everyday Heroes, there's something called the Vault, a compilation volume 1, which basically takes the rules from all of our cinematic adventures, the legendary ones, plus Escape from New York and Total Recall and all of them, and puts them together in one book under the Orc license, which is a open gaming license. And so that book, but it strips out all the IP, so that if people want to use our giant robot rules in their own game, they can do so without infringing on Legendary's copyrights, right? So it just takes the game mechanics and distills it down from the context in which the mechanics were written for. But we always write all our rules with that in mind, right? So that if you really want to play in the world of the Crow, great. But if you just want that book because it's got ritual magic and spiritualism and urban fantasy elements, you could just take those elements for your own game and play something a little bit different. You could do Buffy the Vampire Slayer, right? Combine Highlander with the Crow, and you've kind of got all the elements you need to do that other thing. So we write all our books with that in mind, so that that you can take the pieces out that you find really enjoyable and use them in whatever imagination you want.
Yeah, and this is just sort of those pieces all collected. And without the few little things maybe we couldn't do because it's so specific to the IP. There's no drifting because drifting is so much Pacific Rim. So, you'll need one of the Pacific Rim books, either the Cinematic Adventure or the Cinematic Adventure Path, if you want that. But if you just want giant robots, those are absolutely available.
So I should clarify for people who are unfamiliar. There's the basic rules in the Everyday Heroes book, and then in each of these cinematic adventures, there's some stuff that might be specific to that setting. And
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
This vault book will collect all of those from the different things, with a few exceptions, into one volume, so you can mix and match them to create whatever it is you want.
Right, essentially, yeah. And then a little bit more extra stuff. There were a few extras from the Kickstarter that we promised that are in there. A couple little fun treats like playing level 0 characters and just whatever extra stuff we could squeeze
Yeah, it's
in
kind of
there.
designer's choice. Little elements that we thought would be cool, but didn't fit in any of the books, or that fans asked for. So our game goes from level 1 to 10, but some fans were like, really, me and my players like to play to level 20. It's just what we do. We want to play your game, but without level 20, we just can't do it.
Yeah.
And so I was like, well, I'll tell you what, it won't be maybe this exactly what you're expecting, but I will create a system to go up to level 20 that extends on to what we already have and uses the elements of what we already have in our book, that will let you do that in a way that I think is kind of balanced and good gameplay. So just little things like that we get into that book. And it's really, it's partly for people who want to collect everything, but it's also for people who are just not interested in the licensed properties. Like, they really just only roll their own, right? They only play in their own worlds. And so that book is perfect for them because they don't have to buy all these books and get all the material that they're not as interested in.
Yeah. I run a weekly D&D game that includes my mother, and she hates starting over. So only going to level 10 is not an option for her.
Yeah.
She's always like, but we just did start over. I'm like, no, that was a year ago.
Yeah, that was an entire years-long campaign ago that we started over.
Yeah, I mean,
now, are
the
you gonna-
action
Yeah,
movie... go ahead.
I was going to say,
Yeah, once you get past level 10, you're really getting into like superhero level of power.
yeah.
So we felt like that was beyond sort of your typical action movie
Yeah,
kind
it
of
is
style.
a little different when you're just playing modern human types and not super wizards and elves and stuff.
Yeah, like in D&D,
Yeah.
I do like high levels because if I'm playing a spellcaster, I want to get into those juicy high-level spells,
Yeah.
But we really, in our game, we pack a lot of action into the 10 levels, right? So you always feel like you're getting a lot every time you level up and your character's developing in cool ways. But it would get a little over the top. So in the system I did present in the vault, it's not, you don't get quite as much once you get past level 10. You are picking up things every level, but it's slowed down a little bit from what you might get in D&D, just because if it goes too far, it does feel like superheroes, and then it wouldn't really be everyday heroes. So
Right. Yeah, that's a different game. Are you going to
yeah,
be putting
every
out
game has its
any,
own need.
Are you going to be putting out any just sort of general everyday heroes stuff that isn't adventures and such that isn't tied to a license? Because I know there's
Definitely.
like a quick start adventure that's just sort of a generic action adventure.
Well, we do actually have a quick start adventure.
That's what I'm saying. Is there going to be more?
It is currently available in PDF.
Yeah, we will have more of those. So we write a lot of them for conventions, and we are eventually going to publish those. It's a little lower priority. We try to get the main books that we're working on out first, and then We want to get these convention engagers put together. We're going to have an organized play group, and that's going to be a vehicle through which we'll publish a lot more kind of world building for the Everyday Heroes world, which is just our world, but we're going to create, some villainous and heroic organizations that you can be a part of, and then the organized play will explore the life of these organizations and the heroes that work in them. So there'll be some lore building, and then there'll be adventures that are available to people through the organized play program. Plus, we'll have our normal convention adventures, and hopefully those will be available as well. We're also going to have a line of military books coming out in 2024, hopefully. One is a big arms manual that has just a really extensive catalog of real-world weaponry, including their history and use and that kind of stuff for people who are really into that. And then there'll be a military handbook, which is an expansion on the main game. It's not a licensed property, but it really goes into details of playing a military-style campaign, right, where you're soldiers and you're in a battle and you're tracking the progress of the war as well as the experiences that your characters are having, and has a more realistic and gritty feeling as a campaign, as where the main Everyday Heroes is a little more light and fun and Schwarzenegger action hero kind of a thing. So it'll have a little bit different tone, but it'll still be kind of our core game. Then we're also working on Everyday Arcana, which is not a licensed property. We're developing our own settings for it, and it's going to be a mix of modern and magic together. So, urban fantasy genre game, and that'll be not licensed. So, I think those are all the ones that are in the works now, and it's quite a bit.
Okay. We said Schwarzenegger, so I'm going to pitch at you True Lies as a general spy setting.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I mean, with our core system, you could just do that.
I mean, you just have to name it.
Like you can play Die Hard, you can play Bond, like all those sort of action movies where maybe things get a little over the top. Maybe there's spy gadgets that are a little unrealistic. People survive falls that they really shouldn't have, but it's still set in the real world. That's all just sort of fun movie magic. That really is the core system.
And
we do like to do the. Oh, go ahead.
The other spy, which I think a lot of people don't realize it's a spy setting, but the other spy setting I'm going to throw at you is $6 Million Man.
I was such a fan of that when I was a kid. I loved that show as a boy.
Yeah. So our Universal Soldier book is coming out soon. And in that, we packed in a ton of like cybernetic options and things. Really kind of fleshed out that world with a lot more stuff than just the Unisols, who are sort of cyborgs reanimated with chemicals. To be like, what else would be possible in this kind of world? And so, if you want to play a cyborg or even just a robot, that book is going to have all that. Plus the rules compendium, the Vault.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I've often thought it would be fun to do genre books where, I mean, it would probably impossible because of the licensing, but you do like $6 Million Man, the Bionic Woman, kind of that whole little cloud of events. And then for the 80s, 90s, you do Knight Rider and the Blue Thunder, and there were all they sort of like cluster in these little groups, or A-Team plus Magnum PI. I think those would be a ton of fun.
Nothing that says those are not all in the same universe.
Right, exactly, yeah.
Except for the licensors.
Right, except for the licensors who often. Yeah, so, we wrote Kong and Pacific Rim to be totally compatible with each other. We cannot cross those streams.
Right.
But, as we say, you certainly can, right? And we make it possible to do that.
Yeah, like Kong stats completely work if you want to, team up with Kong against some kaiju, fight Kong. Those rules for Titanic scale creatures and robots is the same between both of those books.
Now, Kong's pretty fast for your average kaiju. There was a couple people that did do a fight between Kong and some Jaegers on YouTube. It was pretty amusing, and they were like, "He moved how far?" Yeah, he's a quick big guy.
Yeah, I mean Kong is pretty agile for that size, so makes sense.
There's another company, I won't mention who, but they have the license for 3 different toy lines because they all are owned by the same company, and they're putting out a book where you get to smash them all together officially.
That's really cool.
But
They get to do that.
Nothing to stop you from doing it unofficially. They just, because
That's
they all
right.
come
Yeah,
from
exactly.
the same parent company, they're able to do that easier than others.
Yeah,
we can't publish that in a book, but we can certainly encourage people to do it, just ourselves.
Yeah, and we I lost my train of thought. Oh, yeah, we really encourage people to write stuff for our game. So we have a really permissive, like, we publish under the Open Gaming license and now under the Orc license. So our mechanics, we encourage people to take and enjoy them and build games off of them. And we have a very generous license for if you want to be compatible with Everyday Heroes and use our logos. It's like $50, and you can do that, and you get advice from Goober and I, and support from the company and marketing and stuff, because we really want to make it kind of a broad, everybody's invited to the party, please come along and play with our rules and have fun. So very open attitude we try to have.
The kind of thing people would normally put up in Drive-Thru RPG.
We can't give people permission to use the
right.
licenses.
Yeah, you can't sell stuff with other people's licenses, but you can totally take our rules and you can sell those, and you can also very much do, if you can make your own license deal and you want to use our rule system, hey, go for it.
Yeah.
All right, let me just make a few notes there. I'll be looking into that. I don't have time. I don't have time for that.
Yeah, that's the hard part.
But let me find out who has the license to $6 Million Man and see.
Yeah, we could take leads. And it's cool. Some of the licensors are really excited to license with us because they just want to keep their IP in the public eye, and so we're kind of doing them a service as well as them doing us a service. And so usually the licenses we end up with are from companies that are eager to have licensed games out there, right? They want someone to do what we're doing, and so that works out the best. Usually doesn't work out when they have no interest and we are asking them and just kind of begging because it's just maybe not worth their time, right?
So you've mentioned the Open Game license and now the Orc license. That was all a bit of a clusterfuck earlier this year.
Yeah,
which
absolutely.
we mentioned a few times on this show. Did that cause a momentary panic at the company, or?
It sparked a lot of discussions. Like when I wrote our original rules, I specifically didn't copy and paste things from the system rules. I read them and then I rewrote them in my own words. Partly just as a matter of pride, and partly because I knew that I didn't know if my boss wanted to use the Open Gaming license. I certainly encouraged it, but that was really his decision. So I wanted to give him a game that he could, in reasonably good conscience, not have to use it. So, when it came down to a question that they may revoke the license, I was like, well, I made the game in such a way that we didn't have to use the license technically. Right. So we should be on solid legal ground. The real scary part is just, even if you're on solid legal ground, people can still sue you. They don't need to be right in order to make you suffer a lot. So there was a real nervousness. Is Wizards going to come with the teeth out and the guns out? Are they trying to take down the competition, or are they just sort of being clueless about what the environment is like? Right. And everyone was afraid they were going to come out and chew us all up, right? And if that was what was going on, it was going to be a lot of pain and fighting, which is no good for anybody. And, in the end, I don't know if that was their original intent, but they backed down and they signaled that, no, we want to play nice. We were just trying to figure out how to have a little more control over things. And so now we're like, okay, great. Things are more or less back to normal.
I know when it was right in the middle of all that nonsense, they did say, if you've already got something in development that, you're already about to publish it, it's going to be okay. Don't worry about that yet. But, still, how long is that going to, how far along are you in your development, and how much of a grace period are you talking about here? And,
Yeah, I mean, they
yeah,
built a lot of trust, right, with the overall gaming community, and it was, you know, kind of a love fest. I mean, there's people who don't like TSR or Wizards. There's always been people that don't like whoever's number one, right? I got no problem with that. But you know, but at that moment, yeah, like they took all that trust and then they just kind of shattered it, right? And they were like, no, you can trust us, and we're like, ooh, yeah, but what you're doing doesn't look like you trust us at all, right?
Yeah.
Like, trust goes both ways, or it doesn't really work. And so that was kind of scary for everybody, and I was amazed they backed down, right? I was like, wow, okay, they actually, you know, backpedaled and said, never mind, and even went a little further than that. And I was like, okay, great.
Yeah.
So-
Yeah, I was amazed that they backed down and then kept backing further from where they
yeah,
were.
they went all the way.
I'm
In
sure there was some internal.
We're going to do even more.
There was probably some internal pressure, as well as the external pressure. And people
And
telling
honestly,
this is what you have to do to fix it.
Yeah. And that move built a lot of trust for me again. I was like, oh, okay. Well, that's a good gesture. Like, all right. Or at least I'm a little wary now, right? But yeah, okay, fine. And we've never had any trouble ourselves with Wizards. We had to talk to them a little bit about the whole inspired by D20 Modern thing, and they generally said, you can do that. They didn't like sign a piece of paper that said you could do that, but they were like, yeah, okay, go ahead. We're not worried about that.
Well, I have the cover that's inspired by that book. I believe you had to make some changes, though. You couldn't use the same
Yeah, we were using
characters.
characters from their setting, which I was a little nervous about, and they did say no about that. So it's like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, the original concept was to do their characters with our style.
Right.
So, you know, it would look the same as our main cover, but it has like the three characters from the front of D20 Modern.
Yeah, as if anybody...
They were like, no, those are our characters,
Right.
which I think is fair.
It is.
So we went the other
It
way.
is,
We
but
just
nobody
sort of
knows.
did
Nobody knows who
the
those
style.
characters. No one knows who those characters are. Though.
Yeah, it's true.
Unless you own the book, you recognize the picture, but you couldn't name them. Well, they had.
Yeah, I think it turned out really well. You know, some people were a little disappointed because, you know, it was different from what we had put up originally, but I think most people were pretty happy with it. You know, it sits on the shelf next to D20 Modern products and looks, you know, really cool and in line with those.
Yeah. And, you know, a company hates to have to go back on what they said. Like, you never want to do that. So when it happens, it's usually, hopefully it's because you have to do that. And that was the case here. It was like, yeah, we don't want to pay for another cover. We don't want to have to do all that, but, you know, but we're going to honor
you
know.
Put up a poll to see, you know, like, hey, what we can't do what we promised. What is second best? You know, what is even better than that? You know, like what thing do you want us to do? And I think that was pretty overwhelmingly the choice.
Well, they had won back a little bit of my trust, but then they lost it again with the Pinkerton incident, and now I'm personally just done.
Oh yeah, I mean, as a company as a whole, definitely. My feeling on the like SRD sort of, you know, license thing was, it felt like the people making D&D like weren't involved in that initial statement. Right. And then they were involved in the follow-up.
Yeah.
So, you know, I think, you know, there's some corporate lawyers or something that are trying to be sneaky or whatever, but, you know, the people who make the game are I think generally very cool.
Yeah, so in a way, it's hard to trust a corporation, right? Because they're not accountable to a single person.
You cannot.
They're accountable to a bank statement, essentially, right? And so, what are you going to do?
I personally am done with that particular corporation, and I will be playing Tales of the Valiant for that specific, for that genre. If I'm not playing
Wolfgang and Company are great people. So I've worked with them before.
But I still have a pile of, you know, things I haven't played yet. So I could go years without buying anything new and not run out of stuff to play. So.
Yeah, but you should buy all the new everyday hero stuff anyway.
You know I'm going to, because as I said, I have a problem. But I've also said on this show, I've said before that role-playing games aren't for playing, silly rabbit. They're for collecting, for putting on your
they're for
shelf
owning
and looking at.
and
And
looking
signing.
at on your shelf and petting.
Yep.
And it's a good thing too for those of us who found a way to make a living at it. So
Yeah.
you know, I sometimes feel bad because I don't buy a lot of games. I feel a little guilty because now I sell games. But
Oh, I buy way too many.
Yeah, I don't have time to play as many games. I'm busy making them.
So, is there a license? You know, if you have a wish list, is there one that you don't have yet that you would like to have that you got your eye on, or one that you you couldn't get, but if you had a wish that you would get?
Definitely for me. There's one that we didn't get. So I think it's pretty much permanently off the table, which is Cabin in the Woods. Because I love horror, and it's such like a cool meta horror thing where we can talk about horror tropes, and like I had this grand vision for it, but the licensors ultimately like we would need to use all the cool monsters that they sort of hinted at, and they didn't want other people expanding on that. I don't know if they're gonna expand on it or what, but didn't work out. And one that is actually pretty likely to happen, which is probably my favorite movie. I think definitely my favorite action movie is Mad Max Fury Road.
Oh, okay.
So there's a good chance that will happen. I don't know where in the pipeline that is, but there have been rumblings. So I'm hoping that happens because that setting would be absolutely fantastic.
yeah,
Well,
I
my
really want to do
favorite-
big. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was going to say my favorite movie is Josie and the Pussycats. So see if you can't make that happen for me.
Yeah, I mean, our fans love to suggest movies to do, and we like to hear them too, because then if like one of the opportunities pops up, we're like, yeah, a lot of people wanted that.
Well,
I
there was
want to
a
do Big Trouble in
D20
Little China.
Oh yeah, that'd be great. There was a
Just-
D20
it's one of my
minigame
favorite
That's
movies.
also been
back in the Dragon and
that's been tossed around also by fans. So I think that
Yeah,
would be
everybody
great.
would
Yeah.
enjoy that one. I don't know where the license is because not all the John Carpenter films are together. They're scattered around the
Yeah.
winds.
there was a D20 minigame back in the I think it was the Polyhedron days when it was a Dragon magazine was a flip book that was called I think it was called Hullabaloo, and that's basically what it was. It was band on the run, teenage band solving mysteries,
Yeah, that'd be good.
doing that kind of stuff.
I think we should do Fast and Furious. Like if we could get that would be great because it's just
Okay.
not a lot of people have done a car action focused thing, and we have rules to support it, but not a lot of our adventures are focused on that yet. So
Uh-huh.
I really want to see some Hot Wheels action hero
Right.
action.
So at level 1,
Yeah,
level
you
1
definitely
you're
do that with the core rules.
at level 1 you're jacking
you would,
VCR TV combos, and then at level 10 you're launching cars into outer space.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's actually kind of perfect.
Yeah.
The 10 movies that are out, I think probably map very well to the 10 levels
You're right.
of everyday
Absolutely.
heroes.
Yeah, that's a good point. I didn't even think about that, but that's very true.
Oh,
Like they just begin to defy physics more and more over the course of it, and more and more crazy spy shenanigans and nuclear subs and flying a car into space, and that is absolutely the kind of stuff you can get up to at 9th, 10th level in this
only
game.
thing left for them to do is time travel.
Yeah.
I don't doubt that they'll do it.
Well, gentlemen, that seems like a good place to wrap it up. So thank you so much for joining me here today. You can
A great pleasure.
find their work
Yeah, it's
at
been cool.
evilgeniusgames.com. I recommend all of it. One last thing before we go, and you may have kind of already answered this. From each of you, who is your favorite kaiju?
Oh man.
For me, it would suck if I name my favorite kaiju and I forget what its name is. But sometimes you get a mental block. The flying Gamera, the flying turtle
Gamera.
that spins around and
Gamera.
shoots flames out of its bum.
Yes, he has a cartoon starting on Netflix next week.
Oh, does he? Oh, that's amazing.
Yep.
Yeah. So
Yep.
Gamera, partly because I like silly oddball things, and Gamera was always a bit of a silly oddball one.
Yeah, I mean, I'm very much partial to Pacific Rim and all the kaiju in that, and I think my favorite of those is Onibaba, which is the big sort of crab monster from Mako's flashback that Stacker Pentecost takes down in Tokyo.
Okay.
I just love the sort of weird crab aesthetic. I made stats for all of these things, and like I don't know, I just really like it.
All right.
They're my children now.
Wow, that's quite a choice. Well, thanks again, gentlemen, for joining me, and thanks to everybody out there for listening. Remember to keep calm and take shelter in basements. Don't misuse science. We won't see you, but you will hear us next time on Monster Movie Funtime Go. You've been listening to Monster Movie Funtime Go. If you enjoyed the show, please rate and review us on your podcasting platform of choice. Our theme song is by the Texicano Folk Rock Punk featuring Lita Lopez. You can support the show, find links to our social media, and even leave us a voice message at anchor.fm/MMFTG.
Funtime Go!